on in academia that is often not well shared. And so that information, being an information sharing hub, could really help industry grow and find additional areas for substitution and alternatives. And then finally is our timescales and costs. So the time to substitution can be very long, 10 plus years depending on the industry. R&D and re-standardization are very costly, and how do those costs get rectified? And then the time on the regulatory decisions and implementation, as I talked about earlier, is also a barrier. So continually reviewing regulation and upcoming potential substitution needs within an industry can be very critical in overcoming the time to substitution. Communicating with regulators regarding timescales, even though sometimes that can be really difficult as well. Finding a way to communicate with people. And then additional information sharing and upstream communication. So using databases where there's a lot of information compiled on alternatives, such as 0PM and the work that DTI is doing, and using those places as information hubs to try to gather as much information as possible to make substitution on a shorter time scale. And then finally, this work has been a conglomeration of many works from the WSP team. We have a very large client base, so this work has been done for industry, NGOs, national, international governments, and focuses on, as you can see here, this is just some of the recent work that's been done that has led us to this work that I'm presenting today. And I'll take any questions.
Much. Okay, I think we have time for one question.
Anyone have a question?
I see one in the back.
Oh yeah, I see a couple in the back. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi there, Christian Simons from Airbus Helicopters. Just your comment about a product passport. I'm just wondering how you envisage the practicalities of that. As you can imagine, materials take different forms as they pass around the supply chain. And it's already quite difficult to track some stuff, information across supply chains. Thanks.
Yeah, so the EU is already starting to implement the digital product passport for some industries. One of them is for batteries. And the way that that's kind of been working is the information from manufacturers. So the manufacturers of the batteries are responsible for pulling the information together about whatever parts of the supply chain they can share, the composition of their materials, but also how they should be treated throughout their life so that recyclers or end-of-life waste can deal with them. And the way that they've been taking this on so far is having a centralized database where the information goes. It's a manufacturer responsibility to put the information in. And then there's layered access for the information. So there's some information that's available to consumers, which would be kind of similar to if you had like an RFID or a QR code on your product. And then there's other information that requires special access to view at a higher level. So this information would only be for manufacturer of the product or for recyclers. The UK is looking at how they're going to implement this long term, but the idea mainly is to gather as much information as possible that's shareable about a product and put it out there in a way that can be shared.
Hi, I'm Anais Carve and I'm a toxicologist, and my question is more of a question to the whole room. We've heard quite a bit about final use products and, for example, fluorochemicals used in the aviation industry. I personally don't have an issue with these substances used in that industry, providing that airplanes are safe. If that's the best substance available, then fine. But I think I'd like to just draw attention to pollution, and I'd like to know the barriers that, for example, chemical companies have in terms of not actually dumping waste in our waterways, on our soil. I know you touched upon barriers, so perhaps you have something to say on that, but I'd like to just ask the whole room, what are the barriers to the chemical companies themselves? Is it money? Is it the fact that we don't have the technologies to remove these substances from water? Is it ignorance? I really don't know.
Thanks. If it's a question for the whole room, I'll let you guys all think on that, maybe for some discussion over lunch, but Karina, if you want to have a quick answer, please do too.
Yeah, I definitely think there are barriers for chemical companies out there. I personally have not done any specific work with manufacturers of PFAS itself. I've done most of my work with downstream users, so I can really only speak to that. But there definitely are remediation barriers where it's hard to identify what techniques are going to be the best for remediation. And I know that a lot of questions been called recently about producer responsibility towards especially chemicals of emerging concern. So I think it's an area that's being investigated, but it's still definitely a newer area of investigation. Yeah, thank you.